For over 2 months now, demonstrators have gripped the Asian financial hub. Protesters initially took to the streets to oppose an extradition bill with mainland China.
Here in Shenzhen, it doesn't feel like a city ready for a mass mobilization. That could change, but Beijing will hold off for as long as it can. It's a last resort. Sending in military or paramilitary forces would mean the end of the Hong Kong protests, but also be the beginning of something much more unpredictable on a global scale.
Tonight, there are serious questions following that mysterious explosion of a Russian nuclear missile 5 days ago. Some nuclear experts are calling it a mini Chernobyl.
The explosion happened at a missile test site just off the northern coast of Russia on Thursday. The government initially saying there'd been no change in radiation levels, but local officials now saying levels had briefly spiked.
Adding to the confusion over exactly what happened in that explosion last week and what threat levels remain.
"4,000 kilometers away in eastern Siberia, another explosion at a military ammunition dump site. The government blamed it on lightning.
There was a big explosion. I saw a colored mushroom cloud. It was very bright. I was slammed by a door that sent me flying."
A fire triggered powerful explosions at the facility on Monday. It was home to more than 40,000 artillery shells. Thousands of residents were evacuated. Russians in both regions are now demanding transparency from authorities.
Meteorologists confirmed that up to 16 times the normal radiation levels were detected in the area when they spiked immediately after the blast. Monitors say they returned to normal about an hour later. Not an immediate threat to life, but there are different types of radiation these readings may not have picked up.
Initially, though, Moscow had denied a leak, as it did covering up the Chernobyl blast 35 years ago, the world's worst nuclear accident.
In 1986, the Soviet Union didn't acknowledge the Chernobyl disaster until Western nations detected heightened radiation levels in Europe.
People are remembering what happened in 1986 at the Chernobyl plant. Of course, it's of a very different scale, but at that time there was also an information blackout.
In the last clip, pictures of another explosion were used with the caption saying that was Severodvinsk, but that was a different blast. It happened on August 5th. A fire occurred at an ammunition depot in the Siberian Krasnoyarsk region. Soon after the fire broke out, explosions began. The entire population of nearby settlements was evacuated. It took until the next day to finally put the fire out.
Buried today, 5 nuclear scientists, described as the elite of Russia's main nuclear test site, killed with 2 others when a small nuclear reactor exploded.
All that looked very dramatic indeed, but that was a different explosion.
It's the secrecy around this incident that continues to fuel fear and speculation, and it's shining a light on Vladimir Putin's nuclear ambitions. Are we heading for a new arms race?
Violent images coming in from Hong Kong all day long, the world now watching. Pro-democracy demonstrators who want to get rid of China's heavy hand, those protesters storming the airport again in Hong Kong.
Stand-ups like this one are happening on a nearly daily basis in different parts of Hong Kong these days, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. Actually, with each day that passes, both sides seem to be more and more entrenched in their position.
Shenzhen is only across the water from Hong Kong, but has experienced none of its chaos. Something may be coming though. Satellite pictures appear to show Chinese armoured personnel carriers and other vehicles gathering in a stadium here on the mainland. There could be more than 500 in total, and the US president himself appeared to back that assessment, tweeting that troops were being moved to the Chinese border. It tallies with what Chinese propaganda has been showing its citizens and the world. A show of might with a soundtrack as bombastic as a film score. It is ominous, and it has prompted fears of a brutal Tiananmen Square-like crackdown in Hong Kong.
One of the world's busiest airports descending into chaos tonight, with thousands of anti-government protesters taking over, forcing frustrated passengers caught in the middle to abandon travel plans for a second day in a row.
After a few hours, this protest fizzled out, but the political turmoil has consumed Hong Kong, and everyone here is expecting more chaos in the days to come.
Beijing's called this terrorism, and tonight is sending a message. Chinese state-owned media showing this video of military forces assembling near the border with Hong Kong for what they say are just exercises. It began as a protest over a law about extradition to China, but quickly grew into a massive pro-democracy campaign.
Well, I think the Hong Kong protesters are drawing a distinction that is really at the core of this crisis. And that is, there are two systems here that are contradictory.
Protesters waving American flags. And as you heard at the top of the show, those protesters, some of them, those there, they were singing America's national anthem.
One is the totalitarian system of the People's Republic of China, where more than 1 billion people are under the thumb of the Chinese Communist Party, and where there is no freedom, and where if you were to wave an American flag and sing our national anthem, you would be detained or worse.
It was
on the other hand is the United States and our flag and the freedoms that it represents, and Hong Kong people have enjoyed those freedoms for generations and have never been ruled by the Communist Party, and they're saying they don't want to be ruled by the Communist Party now, and that's the essence of the crisis here.
A Google employee is going public, blowing the whistle on his employer. His name is Zachary Voorhees. He's a senior software engineer, and he had previously leaked company documents anonymously to Project Veritas. But he decided to reveal his identity because he claims Google called the police on him to conduct a, quote, wellness check. He now wants the world to know that Google has become a highly biased political machine by purposely manipulating its algorithms. And that's not all.
He released a bunch of internal documents about something called machine learning fairness, which is basically this ML fairness program at Google that decides what you see when you conduct a Google search, essentially deciding for you what results come back. What you should see. And what he was trying to explain at the time was that this ML fairness software and algorithm is designed to create what Google considers to be fair and equitable results in order to change the way society feels about things. And he says, and I like the way he puts it, he is making it more expensive and costly for Google to do anything that might harm him because he's now in the public as being the whistleblower. I think it was a very smart move.
Wow, yeah. So he says they were setting the stage of him having mental issues in case something else happens. Well, there you go. You know, he might, you know, he's mentally unstable.
He set up this dead man switch to say, I'm going to release the rest of these documents if something happens to me. And then, Manila, and then the very next day, he had 2 different sets of San Francisco police officers looking for him to perform a wellness check, that Google asked them to perform a wellness check on him. And San Francisco police did confirm to Project Veritas that Google made 2 calls to them to perform wellness checks on this guy, which is a pretty stunning development.
Wow.
This is a blacklist, one of many blacklists that are at Google. This particular blacklist is showing which news sites aren't going to show up underneath the search bar when people are searching on their Android phones. And what they're doing is that they're saying, okay, well, you know, Newsbusters, The Gateway Pundit, National Enquirer, Media Matters, InfoWars, they're not going to appear, you know, on their search results. And they're telling people that, oh, they don't have any blacklist. This is all done, you know, they don't have any political ideology.
Ben, what do you make of that?
I think it's exactly what I've been saying now for almost 2 years, really since 2016, but especially in the last year, that Google is a political machine. Google is blacklisting sites. They are blacklisting journalists. They are preventing people on both the right and the left who are not establishment from being heard. It is their goal to absolutely control the way Americans get information, what they see and what they hear.
So the Bible clearly talks about a falling away in the generation the Lord returns, but that doesn't mean every individual that has a huge setback doesn't mean it's the final chapter of their life. And so I'm still believing, praying, and if I had a chance to talk to them, I'd show love, I'd hug them. I'd say, man, your hearts are hurting. I get it. I see a cry for honesty and integrity and being genuine. That is good. But there's some wrong answers to that right cry. But again, the wrong answers aren't always the final answers, because truth is never hurt by questioning it. Truth is never hurt. It never is. It's always strengthened by questions. I tell our young people all the time here, I go, anything you hear me say or any IHOP leader, if you don't see it with your own eyes and your own Bible, you question it. Just do it with a spirit of humility, but question it, because truth is never hurt by examination, ever. Absolutely. And there are some real questions out there, and there's some painful tensions in the Bible, and we're all little guys with little brains, you know? Meaning, God's big. Look at the stars. How many stars do you think you could make? Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's real smart, real strong, and he's got a real long history of loving people to the end. Absolutely. And so we don't throw God on trial because we're confused by some questions that we have tensions with.